but you just admitted that you love every single man within this specific group. So I personally just want to know what exactly do they all have that you love. Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Alexis, and on this channel I cover important lessons and important takeaways that I get from viral and trending topics. Today I wanted to talk about black women in interracial relationships and the conversations around just black women interracially dating and marrying, and how I'm starting to notice more and more talks about black women willingness, or just black women dating and marrying interracially in general. I feel like the conversations are getting louder and louder, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So I just wanted to come on here and talk about a few things that I've noticed, and talk about a few things that I believe that black women need to consider before or while they're dating interracially, just based on the trends and the things that people are saying. I believe the reason why there's so much focus on black women dating interracially is because historically, black women have always been the least likely to date or marry out. So to see kind of a shift happening with black women is very much intriguing to a lot of people. I feel like sometimes when it comes to black women, everybody want to have a say in who we are and what we do. And it feels so uncomfortable sometimes. It feels like people just want to have a sense of control over us. Everybody is having some kind of reaction to us pretty much divesting from the ideas that we previously had, especially from the previous generation. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I think these are a few things that black women who are looking to dating or marrying interracially should consider before proceeding. Number one, I'm going to go ahead and say we as black women need to stop focusing so much on the aesthetic. I think as a black woman, as a young black girl, when you are raised in the black community, a lot of things are always focused on appearances and the way things look. The inner work and the inner side is never prioritized. And to be fair, it's not just black people doing that to one another, it's also the way as black women we are treated and received sometimes, where if you are in a social group or if you're just around people, you are expected to be the performer, you are expected to be the entertainment, and if you refuse that role, you are not well received or you are not even wanted. From a very young age, some of us feel like the only thing that we can offer has to do with appearances, so we focus so much on that because we don't see value in anything else. And that also affects the way we approach relationships. We sometimes feel like we need to focus so much on the looks and how things look from the outside. And I think when it comes to black on black relationships, that's the mistake that some of us make. And I would really hate to see us opening our options to other groups of men and making the exact same mistakes with them. So I think when it comes to aesthetics and looks, we obviously need to care about looks. We cannot allow ourselves to date or marry men that we're not physically attracted to. But I think there's so many other things that count. Financial literacy, emotional intelligence, is he going to be a good father? There's so many other things that count. And I'm not saying that black women who are dating interracially haven't been doing that. I'm sure some of you have. I'm sure most of you who date outside your race have. But I'm just saying a trend that I've noticed from some black women is that we focus so much on how something and somebody looks, and sometimes we will even sacrifice integrity or even well-being to be with somebody who's good looking, or to be with somebody who we look good with to other people. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. I think that's something to be dropped or left in the trash. So focus less on the aesthetic, focus less on the looks of things, and try to find the right balance in between all areas, pretty much. Number two, I would say put yourself first. As a black woman, I wouldn't advise you to date interracially while you're pro-black. There's nothing wrong with being pro-black for my pro-black girlies. I just feel like if you're gonna open up your options to pretty much divest from the community and open up your mind and your spirit and your heart to other groups of men, I don't think you should take the baggage of the black community alongside with you. That's not gonna make your relationship go well, in my opinion. I don't think so. I think black women have a tendency, and I think it's already a habit, to carry the issues of the black community on your backs, on our backs, and we make it our livelihood. That's our way of life. That is a culture that we have accepted. The men don't really have to worry about much. We are the one responsible for holding the community together. And because of that, we sometimes take those issues everywhere else. And we don't realize that that actually drag us down, or that actually contribute to us not being well received sometimes. For example, someone like Amanda Seals. She is somebody who is very vocal about black issues, and now she's crying and she feels like she's being misunderstood. I'm not saying that her issue is necessarily that she speaks on black issues. A lot of people would say that it's her tone and the way she talks to people. Maybe, but deep down inside, we know it might also be the fact that she's a woman also. Because somebody like Dr. Umar is walking around saying all kind of crazy stuff, very much against interracial dating and marriage. And people sometimes laugh at him. He gets invited to places. He says things that are very pro-black and sometimes seemingly anti-white, sometimes even though it's not. And he still gets chances after chances. So I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with Amanda Seals' assertiveness. But as a woman being pro-black, I think it doesn't pay off. I think people will always be ungrateful and people don't want to listen to what black women gotta say. So if you're gonna decide to put yourself first and open your options to other groups of men, you have to do it all the way. You cannot take the issues of the black community with you. You cannot worry about the brothers. You cannot worry about the sisters who want to be left behind, who don't want to be saved. You cannot worry about that. You have to prioritize yourself, and maybe if you have a good heart and you are nice, learn how to prioritize other black women, because what happens to black women might also trickle down to you eventually. But if you don't feel like it, I wouldn't blame you. But I think the main goal should be to prioritize yourself, your image, your well-being, your mental health, your sanity, while you are opening your options to other groups of men. Do not invite the black community with you. If the black community couldn't even make you feel safe enough so that you could just stay within your community and make things work, as I know so many black women would have loved, then what makes you think that they would understand you divesting from them? No. If you take them with you, they will drag you down along with them, and they will keep making you fail into these new endeavors that you are partaking in. So just prioritize yourself, put yourself first, and leave the pro-blackness behind. If you're going to open up your options and date outside your race, it has to be a you and a you only journey, and the partners that you choose to engage with, obviously. Number 3, I said, please don't be fooled by the high rates of marriage success that include black women and non-black men. Hear me out. I think we need to always remember that yes, black women in interracial marriages are way more likely to succeed compared to anyone else. But the reason why I say we shouldn't focus so much on those numbers is because we have to think on an individual level. As a black woman, you cannot get into interracial relationships or marriages assuming that because so many other black women before you who have been counted in this data are succeeding, somehow that means that that applies to you. No, that's not how that works. Just because all these other women in black and white, or black and non-white, non-black marriages are succeeding, somehow doesn't mean that just automatically applies to you just like that. No, on an individual level, you have to do the work. You have to make sure that you check all the boxes. You have to make sure that your partner checks all the boxes. You have to make sure that all the important conversations are had, that all the concerns are being addressed, are being put to the forefront, that all the important topics are being discussed, money, politics, views on women's rights, views on how to raise kids, etc. I don't think that there are any black women who are just relaxing because they have seen the data on black women and non-black men's marriage rates and our high success rates or whatever. I don't think there's any black woman who's using that as an excuse not to do the work. But just in case, I just feel like the more and more we see interracial marriages, including black women and non-black men, the more issues are going to come from these interracial unions. So far, it seemed like we were working out pretty great, black women and non-black men. But eventually, the more the numbers go up, the more we're going to start seeing issues and divorce rates going higher. And I just feel like I don't want so many black women to just kind of slip on all the work that they have to actually do to make these marriages work. Take your time on an individual level to do the work on your own. Do not just don't get lazy just because you assume that since you're a black woman and he's a non-black man and the odds are on your side that all of a sudden things are just going to work out. I don't think that's how it works. You have to do the work. Number 4, I would say please do not date and marry outside your race based on the things you've heard. I think one of the reasons why black women back in the day were so reluctant to date or marry out is because of the idea that non-black men, especially white men, were public enemy number one. Because of all the, I would say, misconceptions maybe that they had about a lot of white men, that they were evil, that maybe they were the R word, the RA East. I don't know if I can say this on YouTube. So I feel like a lot of those ideas about men of other groups have led to black women being very reluctant, being very scared, being nervous, not wanting to open your options, being very limited and conservative with your dating choices. A lot of black women were not even in close proximity to non-black men to know if they were actually good or not. But now that the marriage rates are going up, I feel like a lot of black women are hearing positive things about non-black men or men of other groups. And some of us black women are internalizing it and just automatically thinking that if a man is from a different group other than black, he's automatically good. I hope that's not the energy that most of us are on. You have to open your mind to the possibility that he could be good or bad. Nobody is good just because they are of a certain ethnicity or race. You cannot date or marry based on the things you heard. You cannot walk into a situation or relationship just pretty much expecting to see all the qualities that other black women told you that non-black men have. And the moment you start noticing those qualities, you just jump in and dive into the relationship, because you also have to have your own standards and notice other qualities that maybe was never talked about on social media or by other black women, if you see what I mean. So never date, marry, interact with people based on the things you heard. Always open your heart and your mind to come up with your own conclusions. That's the best. I think, in my opinion, that would be the best way to achieve a successful union or marriage. So far, it seems like black women and non-black men are doing good, but I'm just saying, just in case, I'm noticing all these social media discussions of so many black women just acting or saying, insinuating that if a man is of a different race, then he's automatically good. Although we can agree that the culture with men of different groups are very different from black men, and there's a reason why your cultures and your racial groups are way more successful than ours, I would still say there's a lot of bad apples that are usually not front page, and black women need to be able to be open-minded enough to see that. You cannot just get into these unions thinking that the men you're interacting with are automatically good because they are at least not as bad as the men within your racial group. I don't think that's the right mindset. So please, open your heart, open your mind to the good and the bad, and see for yourself. Do not just go based on what you've heard from other people. Number 5, I would insist to say, do not open your options to other male groups if you are not ready and willing. From the bottom of your heart, from the bottom of your lungs. Do not do it if that's not what you want to do, because it would backfire. We don't want fear to stop us from getting to our happiness. However, if your system is not encouraging you to date or marry out, do not do it. I myself, as a black woman, would encourage black women to be open to dating and marrying out. But it has to be something that you want. Somebody else cannot know what's good for you. I am noticing a lot of black women who are open to interracial dating, ready to gang up on black women who are not. And I think there needs to be room for black women to choose whatever route they want to choose. Now, if you choose to stick by one group and one group only, and you get disappointed because there's not just that many good men to go around, that's pretty much on you. And with all due respect, you should not expect the sisterhood to just show up because you've been warned. However, I don't think black women who are not ready or willing to date out should be forced in any way, shape, or form. Only do it if you want to and you're willing. Number 6, I would say never date or marry out of your race because you hate the people within your race. I'm sure everybody knows this, but this is very important. I think before opening your options to dating or marrying out, you need to Look into yourself, your inner self. Ask yourself why you're attracted to the people of another group. And if any of the answers ever have to do with how the people of your own group have wronged you, just don't do it. Go get counseling, go talk to a therapist, go talk to your mom. I don't know. Go find a way to release all that hatred and negative energy before you proceed, because I promise you it's not worth it. For example, when you look at the interracial marriage rates, black men and white women are the most likely to divorce. In my opinion, that's because both groups come together for all the wrong reasons. A lot of black men I've seen on TikTok, and I know this doesn't apply to all, but check me out, hear me out here. A lot of black men on TikTok, on social media in general, and this is not just now, even back in the day, like 2011 or so, when they were asked, why do you date women of a specific race that is not your own? They will always include black women in it. I don't know why. Why do you love that woman you with? Black women have nothing to do with this. So are you trying to say that the only reason why you with her is because the women that you really want who are black never give you a fair chance? That's not a good answer. And it's funny how some of those women of other groups will just sit there and laugh and grind like they're doing something. It's like, that's not the flex that you think it is. He's pretty much admitting that if the women of his community could act right, he probably wouldn't be with you. So you're pretty much like second or even last place. I don't think that's a flex. I think that's one of the reasons why both groups, black men and non-black women, are the least likely to succeed, because they come together with, at least on the black man's part, from what I see, has a lot of hate, either for his mom, fellow black men, or just black women in general. He just comes into relationships with hate, and some black men think that a white woman is going to help them heal from your pain and your hurt just because she's white. He thinks she's white, she's going to fix his problem. And that's not how that works. So, as a black woman, please do not make that same mistake. As a black woman who's trying to date outside her race, please do not make the same mistakes that black men are making in interracial dating and marriages. Do not go in there thinking that you are about to one up somebody or the next person. Because if collectively, as black women, we start dating interracially the way the men of our community are dating interracially for the same reasons, for the same motives, we are very much likely going to end up with the same divorce rates that they are actually facing right now. Please do not date outside your race with hate in your heart for the people within your own racial group. Do not do it. If you have any hate in your heart, don't even date at all. Just figure it out before you put yourself out there. Please. Number 7, I would say, I think black women need to address all their inferiority complex before proceeding to open your options to other groups of people. The reason why I say that is because a lot of us black women have been through a lot, especially when it comes to ageism and colorism. We have very much been through a lot, and some of us have never had the opportunity to sit back and feel. So we kind of swept it under the rug, but the effects of those things are still there within us. And we don't really address some of those issues, especially when it comes to an inferiority complex to other groups of people who are maybe lighter than us. And to that, I'm going to say some of us might have an inferiority complex that we don't even realize. That actually might affect the way you approach a relationship with a man of a different racial group. Because if you get into a situation or a union where you think you are inferior just because you're a black woman, that puts you in a very dangerous position where even if that man of a different race abuses you, you might not be willing to see that's abuse because you already think that you're inferior. So you really have to make sure that you are full before you get into those other relationships. And then plus, men of other groups have a different way of abusing compared to the men of our own groups. I feel like the men of our own groups are very vile. They're very rude. But when it comes to other groups of men, they violate in a more private, not more respectful, but they violate in a more private way, in a smarter way. They are a little smarter at manipulating. And I think if you grew up and you were raised in the black community you might see violence and evil very in your face. But when you go to other groups, the evil is very much hidden. So you might not see things from the outside, but it's from the inside that you see the real tea. And men of other groups, if they find out you have an inferiority complex, they will use that at your advantage, trust me. And I feel like sometimes when we talk about interracial dating, we don't talk about this enough. You cannot get into these unions with an inferiority complex. I think it would end up very badly. I also wanted to add that if children ever come into the picture, if you ever end up having children with a non-black person, your children are going to be mixed and probably very lighter skin.
One thing I will say, I do have a fear of having light skin children. Ooh. I want my kids to be brown.
Yeah.
But they're probably not going to be brown.
Yeah.
And I'm like becoming okay
you
with
might
it.
have a demo.
I will be very happy. I will, but I want my kids to be brown.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not, it's fine.
That inferiority complex is going to affect that relationship as well if you as a black woman is not careful. So basically, if you're a darker skinned black woman, think of every single time you got overlooked or rejected for a person that was lighter than you. In this case, if you have a child who is just as light as the people you were rejected for, or you were in competition against and always lost, at this moment, you are now the mom of a lighter skinned person. The same people who represent the trauma that you have when it comes to your skin tone. I think all of these things need to be addressed before you even consider being in an interracial union. Think about the possibility of having mixed kids. Now, to be fair, word on the biracial streets is that having a black mom is completely different than having a non-black mom. I've actually heard biracials admit that they prefer having black moms. I'm not trying to be biased because I'm a black woman. That's just the things that I've heard on TikTok, even on some Facebook page forums.
It's been a while. So I want to talk about the big elephant in the room when it comes to mixed people, right? Oh, you can tell who has a white mom and who has a black mom. Yeah, you can. The ones with white moms, a lot of times, they're either so aware, like painfully aware of what it's like having a white mom, or so on the other end of the spectrum, like there's no in between. And it's painfully true. The one thing, the major difference I feel like, and I've seen another creator talk about this, is like black moms might drop the ball on like regular parenting shit, like as does everyone else, but they never drop the ball. They never drop the ball on raising their kids to be confident in themselves as far as their race. Like, they never let their kids grow up confused about who the fuck they are racially and ethnically. Like, I just don't see it happening. Black women are the most aware of their race and their gender. Like, we literally have to be hyper vigilant about how we experience life. And so Black women have to raise their kids in a world where everyone else will be trying to tell them who they are. I feel like Black moms are like, no, like, this is who you are. You need to stand in that. White moms, a lot of the time I just see are so fucking clueless. I'm sorry to say it, but like, they have these kids for sport, right? Like, they're like, oh, like, this black guy is so fucking hot, and wouldn't our babies be so cute? And they raise their kids like not knowing who they are, not knowing how to identify. A lot of times they'll raise their kids around all white people, which is even more confusing. And personally, like, my dad also dropped the ball. Like, we can blame him too. I just feel like it's not fair. Like, I didn't consent to having a white mom. And I wish white women were more careful about who they had kids with. Because you have to transform your entire life. You have to unlearn every fucking thing that you've ever learned if you want to have a child with someone from a different culture. I would never, like, for instance, be with someone who's Asian and be like, but I'm not going to give up any of my prior cultural practices, and you need to assimilate with mine. Like, I would never do that. I would be willing to uproot my entire life to make sure that my kids were accepted, at the very least, within their family. A lot of mixed kids with white moms do not get the same grace. They just don't. White moms, not all, because I know some who do the damn thing, but it's very rare. It's very rare. And I just don't see black moms struggling with that.
Honestly, it ain't no tutorial. You either got it or you don't. And I happen to have it. Praise the Lord. Oh, my shots out.
So I don't want to make it seem like black women are out here doing a bad job with the biracial offsprings. I'm just saying we have to address our inferiority complex when it comes to being darker skinned, when it comes to dealing with lighter skinned people, when it comes to sharing space with lighter skinned people and feeling bad and hurt and invisible. And now you have a direct connection because you're in a household where you're the only black person. Your man is non-black, your child is not black, really. They're just a mixture of both. And now it's your responsibility to be strong enough for that child. So a conversation that I don't really see a lot of people having, but very necessary. Please, please, please address your inferiority complex when it comes to non-black people, when it comes to biracial mix, because you might have those mixed kids. Address that before proceeding. Number 8 applies to every and anybody, but I'm just going to add it here and explain myself. Number 8 is communicate, communicate, and communicate some more. Communicating in interracial unions is way more crucial than anything else or any other kind of relationships because you have two people from most likely very two different backgrounds, especially when we're talking about black and white. Like we are still very much divided, contrary to popular beliefs. When those unions are coming together, we have to be very conscious of our differences and we cannot shy away from talking about every and anything and putting everything on the table. Sometimes, even when you have things in common with somebody of a different racial group, those things in common come from something different. So, for example, maybe a white person can be very invested in black culture, but the way they perceive black culture and the way they interact with black culture, or even the reason why they embrace it, is completely different than the reason why you, as a black person, embraces black culture. Communication has to be very detailed. It has to be very, precise. Like everything needs to be put on the table, in my opinion, because it's actually a lot of things that we are accustomed to are very different from one another. Sometimes we might not be able to just understand the next person just naturally like that, as if they were from the same group as us. Even if it's a black person you grew up with in the same neighborhood, it might not always mean a thing. There's still a lot of differences there. So please communicate, 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 and communicate some more. This applies to every relationship, but I think it's very much more important when it comes to black women and non-black men, especially white men, because when I think of it, there's nobody who's as segregated from one another than black women and white men. Everybody else is in the middle figuring it out, but white men and black women are literally like on the opposite of the whatever chart, very much opposite from one another. We have to be very clear as to what we're trying to make work at that moment. Communicate, communicate, communicate some more. Number 9, I would say to black women, please do not pedestalize men of other group. I think we as black women have made that mistake with the men of our own group already. A lot of them are very arrogant. It's always shocking when a man within my own racial group, black, is surprised as to why I wouldn't want him. When if you look at him, he has nothing good to offer. Very telling. It's the arrogance of thinking that they own everything when it comes to black women. The arrogance of thinking that every black woman belongs to them. And we helped them gain that arrogance, some of us, by always telling everybody how much we prefer them for no reason.
All my black girlies that exclusively date black men are on a struggle bus. And a part of me is like, just get off the bus. Date other races. Start dating any other race. And there is something in my stomach that immediately just gets sick at that thought. I want black love. I once read this article and it was saying how black women need to start dating outside of their race because it's not working. Like, it broke down all these statistics and all these things. And I did a poll on my Instagram story. Like, would you rather date down or date down within your race? So date down with a black man. So, let go of some of your non-negotiables, a man that makes less than you, a man that whatever your non-negotiables are, date down from those, or date white. And a majority of black women said they would rather date down. And I'm like, what is the chokehold? I'm asking myself, what is the chokehold? Like, I myself would rather date down than date outside of my race. And it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I wish I had more to say than that. I am very frustrated with dating at this point. And I get the girlies that are like, decenter men and focus on your relationship with God and focus on your friendships and da 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 da. And that's what my 20s has been all about. My friends, traveling, catching a fight, doing whatever I want to do, spending money willy-nilly. Like, that's what I do. Like, y'all not trying to come home to the same person every day? Y'all not trying to fold his laundry? Y'all not trying to cook dinner? Y'all not trying to go to Pilates after you make your kids lunch? Oh, we got different goals. I feel this to my core. And it's really hard. Like, people will show me someone that is a different race, and I will be like, they are cute for that race. I don't know how to just be like, oh, they look good. Like, I'm like, oh, they're cute for a Hispanic guy. They're cute for an Asian guy. They're cute for, like, to me, the black man is as fine as it gets. Like, I'm going to drool. I'm going to just, like, melt. Like, a good-looking black man. Like, yeah. Like, to me, I don't get that sensation, that feeling from a different race. And so I think I struggle to date somebody else.
I don't hate, obviously, the men of my group, but I'm not going to love a man that I don't know. But you just admitted that you love every single man within this specific group. So I personally just want to know what exactly do they all have that you love. That mindset has got us to lose a lot because that energy was never ever reciprocated. And the men of our community are very nasty, very arrogant, insulting, very disrespectful, and some of them still live in the past where they think the women of the community will never really divest from them. So it would be a shame to see black women going from putting the men within our community on that pedestal and pretty much helping them having this huge ego to helping other groups of men having this huge ego as well. And I promise you, non-black men don't need nothing from us. So if you're gonna date within that racial group, just be a princess, I would say, because they already have all the power. If you think about it in society, they already have all the power, or at least most of it. Do not generalize all men. Not all men are bad, but not all men are good. There are always bad apples and good apples. Okay, so please remember that as you're speaking of men of any racial group. I can understand if you are enjoying or praising your man specifically. One thing's for sure is that even if one man of another group loves a black woman, chances are he only loves that black woman. The collective doesn't care about us. The collective of those other men, they don't really care about us, which is fine because they have their own female counterparts to care about. So focus on your own man and your own man only. Do not pedestalize the whole group. It's not going to work in our favor in the long run. And then number 10, I would say avoid comparing the men that you meet from other racial groups to the men that you've dealt with from your own racial group. The comparison is not going to be helpful. And then plus the comparison also shows that you are not completely willing to open your options. Sometimes as a black woman, you date within your racial group and you don't get the best deal you could get. Sometimes you get way below your price, way below an offer that you actually deserve. If you start dating outside your racial group and you compare those men to your male group or the men you've dealt with who gave you way less than the bare minimum, those men might give you the bare minimum as well. But because it's a little more than what you're used to, you will just embrace it and just take it open arms. And you will not even realize that you're selling yourself short. I think every woman, especially as of a certain age, like age where you are now looking for marriage, just write down everything that you are looking for. Write down what's going to be the perfect person for you. Write down deal breakers and write down flaws that can be tolerable. and make sure that you go by that script. Do not compare your current to your ex, because there are probably things that he's doing that maybe your ex was not capable of, and the things that maybe your ex was capable of that the new one might not be able to do. But does that mean that the relationship is not going to be successful? That's for you to decide. But I really think Black women should not compare other groups of men to the ones of your racial group, because even if those other groups of men do the bare minimum, but which is better than what you used to, you might just praise them for it when they're pretty much doing nothing. Make that list, know exactly what you're looking for, and go by that list, go by that script. Avoid comparing. Open all your options, open your heart, open your mind to something new, but absolutely do not compare. Just move forward. So, voila, we have now made it to the end of this video. I just gave you 10 things that I believe that Black women need to consider before or while they're opening their options and dating outside your own race. And I hope everything or something that I mentioned in this video was helpful to somebody, really, because I really want the message to be out there. As always, I am very thrilled to have you all here. I hope you guys can hit the like button, leave a comment, tell me how you guys are feeling about this, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you again. Thank you very much.